So with it being such a unique spring, I mean, you guys tried to pack in so many events in just a few short months. There had to be a ton of planning going on, not just from a game operations side of things and in event marketing side, but the communication strategy across departments. That's obviously what Ben and I are always super curious to find out when we talk to folks across the industry is what went into the planning of such a unique couple of months. Zach, I guess I'll start with you and just where did you guys say, hey, this is where we have to be strategic and pick and choose our spots and not overload folks with information?
Right. Yeah. I mean, everything was jam packed. So we were looking for spots that we could give our fans, our donors, our students, things that that they would have experienced in the stadium that they didn't get to experience. So we were having very direct conversations with each other about what are the 4 or 5 things we can do throughout a basketball season that we can take from what we were doing in the arena, but giving it to them wherever they might be in space. So it was just very, very dialed in conversations, again, on a weekly basis. Like, who are we talking to? Who are we touching? And how are we doing it?
And Marianne, for you, even though the demographic or the group doesn't change in theory, I mean, it's former student athletes, but when you've got every single sport during the spring season and you're trying to manage that communication with all of those student athletes has to be challenging. And so talk me through what you guys did there.
Yeah, it was a unique opportunity for sure. One is that it gave me a chance to look and try some things that we haven't been able to try in the past and to engage groups in different ways. And so definitely, like an example is we did virtual Zoom alumni reunions. And boy, that was just eye-opening. The number of people that jumped on the call that we have never met in person and never been on campus was amazing. And the connections that we've made from there, you know, are awesome. And so those are things that we're going to continue.
Yeah.
Even in the, you know, in person as we head back to the fall here. So we want to keep engaging the people that have moved away, can't come to campus. And what a great opportunity that was. I don't know that I would have known that if it wasn't for COVID.
Yeah, right. It forced you to think outside the box and think creatively. And that's what we hear with our clients across the country is it's forcing us to do things. And I love how you, I don't think that this is the opportunity for folks to just say, well, that was great. We did it during COVID and now we're just back to virtual events. So Marianne, keep going there. I want to know more about you guys say you're going to start to continue to mesh
right
virtual with the in-person. How does that look in the future?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Chris. We haven't really tackled how that will look, but we definitely have on the calendar some events in person for the fall. And so, but definitely, you know, we are so grateful here because we have such a great staff and such a great coaching staff that wants to be involved. So they're open to jump on Zooms, you know, on a Wednesday evening for an hour and to meet and, you know, to talk about their programs and talk about their student athletes and what's important to them and what their needs are. And our alums want to hear that. They want to hear from the coaches. And by doing these mini reunions, it's given them an opportunity to learn so much more about the teams, about the coaching staff and the student athletes that it just opened a door for them. And so, you know, we're going to plan to continue that. I'm sorry that I don't have details right now, but definitely we're, you know, going to find a spot for that.
So Chris, real quick, Marianne, on the flip side of that, are there now things that you're like, hey, we added this during COVID. I can't wait to never do this again. Like,
oh my gosh.
You know
what?
That's really putting you on the spot, right?
Yeah.
In my world, no. In my world, not really. I mean, it opened so many doors for me. I mean, I was a journalism major. I got to write feature stories that I, wasn't part of my job in the past. I got to do more fundraising. I got to start a new platform for former student athletes. And so many things that I was, I want to say bogged down with my usual routine job. It just, really in my world, I was able to open up so much more. And
Yeah,
I'm so
that's
thankful
awesome.
for that.
That's
Yeah,
And I've got an answer to that one.
Okay.
Yeah, go
Thank
ahead.
you.
I'm sure Zach's got something.
Fake crowd noise. Never again.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
See,
Jeez.
I said, I in my mind, I was thinking Zach as the marketing guy is going to say, never again. I want to see fans in the stands at every single event we ever have from now until the end of time. Yeah. The no fans in the stands is tough. Yeah. Fake crowd noise. Brutal. I mean, but there are things that to Marianne's point, you have to adapt. You have to think creatively. And Zach, I know you and I have had this conversation before, but to be able to tell a story from a different perspective and be able to engage not just former student athletes, but Zach, you in looking at the general fan of the university more, and being able to give a different voice to a story, I think it is something that's got to be unique that you guys plan to keep around, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like Marianne said, it just opens up doors, and we're all about relationships. So it doesn't matter if it's a relationship with a student, with somebody who's given $5 to the department, or somebody who's got an estate gift lined up when they pass away. Like each of those relationships means something and could last a really long time. Right. So it's just about how can we take advantage of each one of those opportunities.
Sure. And I'm curious, actually, that leads me perfectly into my next question, Zach, is okay, so you've got these messages, you've got all of these different, and this is why we wanted people from the same department in here, because I'm curious, we're always finding out from our clients, how do you communicate messages to those different demographics, right? You've got students, you've got young alumni, you've got so on and so forth, all the way down the line through these different communication channels. Does the message ever have to change? Does the channel have to change from one group to the next? I'm curious.
I mean, if we're talking about like students and our donors, yeah, I think the message has to be different. It has to look different. I don't, things that we did with the text messages to our students, short and simple. We like to share our intro videos so that they felt like they could be there and there was something to come back to later. We might share that same video with the donors, where we used emojis and things like that with the students, but it's more about like, this is really exclusive for you as a donor. We miss you in the stands. Here's the intro video to start the season right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's just tweaking it a little bit to fit what they want to see.
Yeah, and definitely I would say, on the former student athlete side, I mean, obviously you can talk to them as a former student athlete, that they've been here, that they're on this journey, they understand the journey. And so tailoring the message that way. And, we've been able to do some fun tweaking of that to like their parents, for instance, what the message would be to them as well. And just, as long as the message is clear and concise, like Zach said, and then what medium you're using. I mean, we've been surprised because, with the texting, we've used it with our young alums. We just used it with the parents. We had success with that, with the parents as well. So, it's surprising to me that different groups are responding to it, and it's just a learning experience for sure.
Sure. I think what more and more departments and folks in the industry are learning is that not only is it refreshing to get a message that is tailored, personalized to you as a donor, as a parent, as a fan, that is in the voice of a student athlete or a coach nowadays, but also to get it in a different channel, because people aren't at their computers as much as they were pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, more and more folks are moving away from computers. So finding other ways to engage, interact, and provide value add, right, to these fans who haven't been as connected. This is, I think, the most disconnected fans and donors have ever been from their athletic departments. And so those that are finding ways to bring them back and continue to reconnect are the ones that are going to find themselves kind of ahead when it comes to that. And so as we switch to kind of a I don't even know if you can say a.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead, Marianne.
And just
Absolutely.
say one thing, because I want to make this point.
Yeah.
That the one thing that I love about the texting software is that it comes personally from me, and other messages that we send necessarily don't always, convey that. And I sometimes forget on my end that, it's we send out, thousands of them, but they're thinking it's coming from me, and they're starting to respond to me like, hey, Marianne, hope you're doing well. And,
Yeah.
personal things that I have a connection with them. So it's definitely been a great way to continue to build that relationship. And then I'm able to go in and then personalize a message back to them, respond to them personally. And so that's been wonderful. That's been great.
How has that been in terms of different from email, perhaps? Is the response rate different? Is it like just in general, kind of how is your how has that one-on-one relationship changed, if at all?
Well, here, the emails, when we send them out from the department as a whole.
Yep.
And so I'm not getting feedback from them personally, unless, my name's on the bottom and they call me about something. But with the texting, I mean, they really honestly believe that I'm texting them. I can tell by the response I'm getting. I mean, they ask me about, hey, I didn't get my letter jacket, or, something like that. So I know that they're, really thinking I'm sitting here typing in individually to them.
Sure.
And that is building that relationship with them, that personal relationship. And that's what we want. So
absolutely.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Chris, but I just want to make that point.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I appreciate that. And it does lead into my next kind of topic of discussion. And I think both of you all have been incorporated in giving days and giving initiatives there at Illinois State, as they've kind of just recently started their giving day, Birds Give Back. But athletics has had some enormous success there. Marianne, you had your own success in the fall with a student athlete specific giving day. But kind of where I was going there is, the more personalized relationships you can build, the stronger the affinity grows for a university, which then ultimately results in what everybody wants, which is either higher engagement, Zach, for you, or more revenue. I mean, who doesn't love that?
They get something in an email, they get something in a text, they get something on social media, they get a phone call. And then it's not every one of those things, they've been touched in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I would just add that they need to hear the message repeatedly.
Yeah.
So, I wish that every time I, reached out to someone, they would immediately give to me, right? But we all live in a really busy world, and, I know I do it. I get something and I think, oh yeah, I want to give to that. And then, you know what? I'm out the door here and there, and I totally forget. And I need that reminder message. And I, love that you get the message in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And I think that has really been successful for us.
There's one of those.
Go ahead, Zach.
I was just going to say, I think one of those ways, because your question was about personalization too. Yeah. That they give that gift, and then they might not hear from anybody for a week or more. Now we have the ability to hit them a different way and fire off a quick text message to say thanks in the moment, if we so choose on a giving day.
Yeah, sure. And there's so many, to Marianne's point, so many things that can get clouded in an email inbox, even in a text inbox sometimes, in your voicemail, to where there's nothing worse than you coming up and having, Marianne, I know you're great at this, having a follow-up conversation with somebody at an event saying, hey, I told you about XYZ. Well, I didn't get your email. Well, there's nothing worse than having to stop the conversation right there. There's nothing better than saying, well, you didn't get my email, but I also sent you a text. I also called you 2 days ago. And to be able to put that person back on the spot instead of them putting it always back on you is kind of nice to be able to have those multiple communication channels that you all are working. And it sounds like you guys are working them really well together and forming this well-rounded communication strategy that ultimately leads to the best success for the university. So how do you track that success? Because sometimes it's difficult when you're hitting people from so many multiple channels. And Marianne, you mentioned that the number of times you have to hit folks, it's tough to put a number on this is the communication channel that is working the best for us. So is it more of just understanding, hey, it's going to always be a holistic view of the communication channel? I'm curious to know what you guys do to really measure this success.
It's tedious for sure. I mean, it's tedious to try to go back and track, but nothing is more fulfilling than to see a donation come in, even in a different department, but know that, hey, that's because they came to an event, here, that we touched them, had a phone conversation with them, talked to them about, something going on here, and just put them in the pipeline.
Mhm.
So, I think that's really important. We do have, I mentioned that we have a new network out for our Redbird for Life Club, our former letter winners. And it does give us a lot of data as far as like interactions with them and what they're focusing, what resources they're focusing time on. So I can go in there and look at that and then go back to our giving campaign and, see how, if they are interacting there. So it's tedious work, but it's definitely something that you need to know what worked and what didn't.
Yep.
So
Absolutely. That closing that feedback loop, that's what we constantly call that. Just like, hey, we are implementing this strategy, this campaign beyond just the money raised. I mean,
Right.
how do we know this is working? Hey, we got new engagement from people we've never gotten before. I mean, that data is so hard to come by. We hear the same thing over and over. It's just like, yes, it's a tedious, very manual process. It makes me want to build something that's more focused on that, but
go for it.
yeah.
Ben's wheels
Oh,
are
yeah.
turning.
Always. That's
Yep.
great.
Yep. Well, guys, I'm so grateful that you all came on. I've got one kind of question I want to wrap up with, but you all have been fantastic. It's been great to kind of get a little bit of insight into what you all are doing there at Illinois State. If you could give a little bit of advice to some of the folks out there who are watching, who are listening, who are trying to work between departments within one athletic department and forming kind of this communication strategy that you all have going at Illinois State across multiple channels using text, emails, and others. Could you give them some advice as to best practices, or, hey, this is what's really the one thing that's really worked for us really well?
Yeah, I would say being persistent about it. There'll be some people who are unsure of how often you should send a text and on top of all the other communication methods we have. But I'm never afraid for somebody to opt out, whether that be a text message or an email, because there's so many other people that are there. So if you're persistent, you're going to see some trends. You're going to see some things happen. By being persistent, you're also going to get buy-in from the rest of the communication or external staff or whoever else might be of value to leveraging a tool like this. That persistence will go a long way. You can't get results overnight, not always. So if you stick with it, it should pay off.
And I would just add to be creative and don't be afraid to try things. So like I mentioned, is like, COVID gave me opportunities to try new things, and, it's really been fun. And think about who your target audience is. I mean, mine is former student athletes. They're competitive. So we came up with a campaign to challenge them in a competition.
Mhm.
And for Birds Give Back, I did another competition for Hall of Famers, where we collectively asked them to put, gifts together to challenge former student athletes. And we got a great response from that. So, it's worth trying new things and tweaking it, and, just, be creative and don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Awesome.
Well, thank you both so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time. It's been great to work with both of you. And we wish you nothing but more success in the future. Try and take more vacation if you can in the next couple of months, because come August, we're going to get back to a much needed normal season of football, and it'll be nice to kind of get back to that. But thank you both for everything today, and we wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for the partnership.
Yep.
Awesome.